not to shove it inside. I was so distraught. The more tense you get, the more your vagina actually rejects it and pushes it out. Hi guys, welcome back. Oh my god, before I even begin, this is so strange. Like, I feel like looking here, but the camera lens is here. I'm finally using my new Canon M50 instead of my Canon G7X Mark II. And I'm excited because I genuinely can't wait to see the clarity of this one. Like, I feel like, let me move the camera a bit. This is very strange because typically when I use my other Canon, the screen is directly above. But here, the screen is over here, which is a little bit strange. So forgive me if sometimes I look here just to see that I'm not looking a little bit crazy and that I'm actually talking correctly. But we are back with another girl talk video, but this time we are talking all things periods. I have been asking my Instagram followers, my YouTube followers, what types of videos they want to see for ages now, and one of the most requested ones is always period hygiene. I don't know why I haven't done it yet. I feel very comfortable talking about everything else, but for some reason I seem to kind of hold myself back on this one, and I've realized that that's not good. Like, the whole point is to educate and to be educated, to learn new things and to teach new things, and also just to talk to my girls. Like, you guys know how much I love doing this. So today we're going to get started with the period hygiene video. Men, if you would like to watch this and maybe have a conversation with your daughters or your girlfriends or your wives, your fiancés, whatever relationship you have with them that could benefit them, stay tuned and listen in. To all my gorgeous women out there, especially my younger girls, this is going to be a light, fun, friendly video. There is no pressure. I don't want you guys to feel like you're being forced to behave a particular way when you have your periods. This, I would say, is definitely recommended for PG 13 and up. I say that, but then there are girls that have had their periods from the ages of 11, but I like it to be PG 13 and up. Disclaimer, as I like to say in all my videos, I am not a doctor, I am not a nurse, I am not a gynecologist, I am not a medic. I cannot give medical advice like that. All I am saying is things that I've been taught, things that I have learned from research, things that I've learned through trial and error, and just a nice, light, friendly way to discuss the gruesome little things in the most amount of detail. Tip number uno. Find your method of sanitization. So whether you want to use a tampon, whether you want to use diva cups, whether you want to use pads, sanitary pads, whatever it is, nappies, whatever it is, find your use of sanitization. And I'm not saying you can't switch it up, but find the one that makes you more comfortable and stick to that. Try not to necessarily jump on this wave of doing what everyone else is doing. If everyone else around you is using a tampon and you're more comfortable with pads, use a pad, and vice versa. Don't feel like you have to be obliged to use the same thing as everyone else. Find your comfort and stick to that. I have touched on period hygiene in a previous video I done on hygiene and stuff like that. So obviously I think I only did 3 points in that one, which I will put like a little link to as well. But this is the longer and more in-depth version. The second thing I would say is whatever sanitization you choose to have, make sure you change it regularly. I feel like I shouldn't even have to say this, right? Keep looking there, I'm sorry. I feel like I shouldn't even have to say this, but I do. Make sure you change it regularly, because once you have started bleeding and the blood has left your body, it has the potential to get contaminated. When that bacteria is produced, it can lead to things like urine infections, vaginal infections, rashes around the inside of your thighs and your vagina, and we just don't need that. It also sometimes, the longer you leave that, obviously when you sweat, and you do sweat, it is what it is. When you sweat, it can obviously then release an odor. Again, not something we need, and I've touched on this before about just feminine hygiene in general and odors and stuff like that. It can release an odor, and that is something that I would obviously always say to be mindful of. I don't know what the exact time is that is required when it comes to changing tampons, pads, etc. I will write them on the screen because I don't actually know the exact time off the top of my head. I think if I'm correct with the sanitary towel, it's every 4 hours, but I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm going to make sure. But it is very, very important to make sure you do that. Also, it's just dirty. You're sat in your own blood. I do understand that some people are very much like, but it's come from within me, and I genuinely get it. I genuinely understand, and it is very much factual. But also, you just don't need to be sitting in it for longer than necessary. Also, what I don't want people to do is when they use things like tampons and pads, don't get worried if some days you have a heavier flow than others. Some days you might leak whether you're using either. And some days you might not barely use it at all. You still need to change it regularly, no matter how much blood there is or is not on there. It's still very important to make sure that it is regularly changed. Don't think that if you've got a lesser cycle and there's less blood, it means you don't have to change it as often. You still need to change it no matter how much blood literally comes out of you. It needs to be changed. Try not to use too many soaps down there. Try not to use too much soap down there. I've said this so many times about how it can affect the pH level of our vaginas. Obviously our vaginas self-clean. That is what really works in finding the good healthy balance in terms of bacteria, etc, etc. Sometimes when you wash it with too many scented soaps or too many soaps that had added perfume or things that are not actually good for you, there's a slight problem. I would definitely say if you do want to use soap, to use it on the outside of your vagina, but whatever you do not go sticking fingers and soap bars inside to try and wash it out. It does not help. It's not going to make you smell any better. In fact, you have a higher risk of then creating an infection that you don't need and messing with the bacteria, and that can have a longer term effect than if you just use nice warm water or use soaps or vagina washes and stuff like that that have no added extras. I'm a huge fan, which I've said before, of using things that are actually meant for kids, because I feel like they're the ones that don't come with all the added things that we don't need, that are just bad for our bodies. So I would definitely recommend looking into that. For example, especially if you're in the UK, I'm not too sure if they have this in America, but things like Sanex Zero, always good. Again, if you're someone that likes to use scented products, fine, just try not to shove it inside. Maybe just keep it on the outside, inner thighs, that kind of vibe. We don't want you getting infections, baby. Which leads me on to my fourth point, which is wash as regularly as you can. I said this in my latest video where I said that if you can't wash and you're not in a place where you can shower and you feel like you're starting to smell, maybe you're at a restaurant, maybe you're out with friends, take things like baby wipes and stuff like that so you can at least go to the toilet and wipe there, or take a flannel so you can at least use warm water and wipe down there and keep yourself smelling fresh. If you are in a place where you can shower, like at home, a friend's house, your parents' house, wherever you are, please make sure you wash regularly. Like, I can't stress enough how important that is, regardless of a period, but especially on your period, make sure you wash regularly. Okay, sorry guys, it needed to go up. It was just doing too much, but it's okay, it's out of my face. Even if you feel like it's unnecessary because maybe, I'm a mess! Even if you feel like it is unnecessary because maybe you aren't, I don't know, bleeding as heavily, maybe you haven't leaked, blood dries. And if you're excessively sweating, or if you're wearing 2 layers of underwear because you don't want to leak, if you're wearing thicker jeans, thicker tracksuit bottoms, more leggings, or whatever it is for the same reason I just said, because you don't want to leak, it is very important to make sure you wash off any excess blood, any sweat, or anything that can just build up bacteria. So what I would say is that blood tends to end up in places that you would never imagine. My nan's probably watching me make this video up in heaven and looking down and being like, why are you talking to the people about their blood and their vaginas? But honestly, sis, education is so important. But this is very, very, very intrusive. But here we go. The space between your bum, so between your bum cheeks, your bum hole, bum crack, whatever you want to call it, and your vagina lips, your vagina opening, blood can also get there too. For those of you who have used pads, I don't know if you've ever noticed that sometimes if you lay down or sit down, there might be blood towards the back of the pad. What you need to understand is that if there is, that means that there's also blood between your bum cheeks, huns. So that is also why it's so important to wash in that area to make sure that it's all clean, because not only can bacteria get into your vagina, you got a booty hole too. If you're someone that is going to be using 2 forms of sanitation at the same time, this is the time in which you need to be extra vigilant about what is going on with your body. Example, if you use 2 pads at the same time, sometimes if you've got a heavy flow and you overlap them, if you use a tampon and a pad, if you've got a heavy flow because you don't want to leak, what tends to happen is that because it is spread out, if for example it's on 2 pads, or if it's on a tampon you haven't leaked onto the pad, you then tend to forget that actually it needs changing and that it could potentially be used up. Always be ready with like a little on the go type of pouch bag situation. Always be ready with that. Sometimes if you do have a heavy flow, or sometimes if you're wearing maybe the wrong underwear, or maybe the pad just isn't working, the tampon's just not right for you, and that is a thing, be ready with an on-the-go bag, a change of underwear, a change of bottoms, extra pads, extra tampons. Make sure you have that with you at all times. If you are going out, try and stuff pads and tampons into your bags, but try if you can. And this is something my mum taught me from a very young age, even when it came to leaving stuff in the car, if I ever broke down in my car, and definitely on an airplane, always make sure you have a change of underwear with you. I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure you have a change of underwear with you. Pack a bottle of water if you're someone that could potentially get dehydrated. When we are bleeding, we lose a lot of iron, so try and pack some snacks, potentially something that is filled with some more iron so that you're not losing too much. I know myself personally, like when I first started my period, I became really heavily anemic when I was younger because I was bleeding so much and losing so much iron. I developed anemia. We thank God that I'm okay now. But growing up, it was a nightmare because every time I had my period, I'd feel dizzy, I'd feel lightheaded. So please try and make sure that you have things like waters, snacks, bread, food, anything that you can carry with you depending on where you're going and how much you can take with you. Always have with you at all times. Typically, females get their period between the ages of 11 to roughly 15. If you are over the age of 15 and you have not yet got your period, that's fine. What I'd say is maybe get it checked out and check that everything's fine. It is possible that it's just started late. But if you have not yet got your period and you are watching this, normally you can tell if your period is coming because what happens is your body will try to release extra fluid like discharge. So obviously we get discharge from a young age anyway, but it's basically your vagina cleaning itself. I know I've mentioned this so many times, but it cleans itself, it leaves you a nice little hello surprise in your underwear, but that is also a sign when you start getting a little bit more discharge at a young age that your period is actually coming. The average period lasts between 3 and 7 days. So this is just a little mini clip for those who have not yet started. The average period is between 3 to 7 days. Some last 3, 4, some last 7 or 8. Some actually last longer, but the average I believe is between 3 and 7. I think it's typically around about 5 days roughly is how long the average period lasts. Unfortunately, a lot of us do experience things like cramps and pains, which is like a tight squeezing sensation, almost like if you were to squeeze like a stress ball in the lower part of your stomach. Doesn't feel nice. If you're really in tune with your body, then you can actually feel your actual period literally leaving your body. You can feel your blood leaving your body. But that is also a telltale sign, and something that I feel like everyone should know, especially those who have not yet started their period, is that once you start your period, you can fall pregnant. So any sexual activities you do thereafter, you now have a chance of becoming pregnant. It doesn't mean that just because you started your period you are going to be pregnant, but just know that from the minute you are able to have a period, you are now also able to bear a child. I really genuinely remember my first time using a tampon. I didn't think it was possible to get it in. I cried until I nearly made myself sick. I was so distraught that I did not know how to put a tampon in, and I just remember sticking to pads and I was like, it's fine. And it gets to a point where when you go to certain places you can't always use them. You try and find a way to make it work, but sometimes a tampon is necessary. My mum used to teach me a trick if anyone's like struggling with trying to get it in, where she used to put a leg on the edge of her bed or her bath or the toilet just to give it the right angle, because of the way your actual vagina itself sits. It's not just directly straight up, it is actually slightly an angle. She used to say to me when you put it in, to breathe in and relax. She used to say to me, the more tense you get, the more your vagina actually rejects it and pushes it out. If it is extremely uncomfortable, what I would say is that you may have potentially put it in the wrong direction. Let me just tell you that that shit is painful. It could also be that you just need to have more practice with actually putting it in and taking it out. For me, I know my worst part of it is taking it out. Like, I think it's just the most awful thing I've ever been through trying to take it out. Like, I hate it so much. It has to be done, but I hate it. And also what you should know about tampons specifically is that when you do pull them out, they are obviously going to be a lot bigger than when you pull it in. So the pressure of pulling it out might feel slightly weird. Don't be alarmed, don't be scared. Just pull it gently and don't stop halfway, because that's very uncomfortable. Just keep pulling it and it will eventually come out. You're basically giving birth to a tiny little baby. Pads, however, you can get different lengths, you can get different sizes, you can get them with or without wings. Time ones for if you're going to sleep, so maybe they're a bit more absorbent, a little bit longer, a little bit thicker. Whatever suits you is what you should try. If you're someone with a heavy flow, I always suggest getting the long ones. I think they're called Super or Long, I don't know, it depends on what brand you get. Always is always the best brand to use when it comes to pads, in my opinion. Try what you can and see what works best for you. If you're in a position where you find that you don't have pads with you or a tampon with you and you started, or your cycle's a bit too heavy, I would definitely recommend using toilet paper. I would recommend wrapping it around your hand quite a little bit, nice and thick, and has a little bit at either side, because obviously when you're putting this down, this does not have the wings that you would need to put over the flaps of your underwear. So you kind of need just a little bit extra, so when you sit down, if it moves around, it doesn't kind of make it too messy. You basically made your own makeshift pad. I feel like us girls, when we go to clubs, like, we're so comfortable talking to each other in the toilets, but when we're in real life and in a real life situation, we're not. Please don't feel scared to ask anyone if you ever need any help, or if anything's wrong or if something's happened. As females, we need to stick together and we need to make each other feel comfortable. And believe me when I've said we've all been through the situation that you're probably going through. There is no harm in just asking for a little bit of help, asking if someone has a tampon, or just seeing if there's any knowledge that you can gain from anyone just in the toilets too. When you are disposing of a sanitary towel or a tampon or the packaging, especially in your own home, the last thing you want is for your bathroom to just have a foul odor, because the longer you obviously leave it there, the worse the smell gets. You can buy little sanitary bags that are scented and keep the odor within the bags. So pop your used one within there, and if you want to pop it in the bin, then put it in the bin, but make sure you tie it as firmly as possible. Last but not least, if you have a mobile phone, which everybody does, you use an app. Now, obviously you don't have to. If you are someone that's very in tune with your body and you're good at counting the days, then you know when you're due. But I love using apps. So my favorite go-to app right now is called Cycles, so monthly cycles. And it looks like this. You basically enter in when your period was, which would come up in pink. And it also tells you when your highest days of ovulation is. You can say whether you have a light, medium or heavy flow. You can say what events you've got. You can say what symptoms you've had, what your temperature was, what your weight was. If you wanted to do a pregnancy test, you can say the pregnancy test. You can do your sexual activity, if you've taken any pills. Honestly, this is amazing. There's so many others that you can get in any app store, whether you use Google Play or whether you use the Apple Store, whatever it is. It's always good to track it and then monitor how you're feeling, because then that's how you become more in tune with your body. I've become so in sync with my period now that I can sit there and be like, I'm gonna start in the next 15 minutes, and it will always happen. I'm telling you, it's a godsend, these apps. All right, guys, I think we're done talking all things period. If there's anything I've missed out, if you have any questions, please comment them below. I really want to do like another video talking on periods, but maybe how to talk to boyfriends, partners, husbands on how to deal with them, etc. But I just want to make sure that everyone's as comfortable as possible. Please know that every female has them. You are never alone. Do not feel uncomfortable if you have to buy tampons or pads, and do not feel uncomfortable if you ever have to talk to anyone about it. If there's anything that you guys are curious about or you want some more information about and you don't want to comment it below, DM me on Instagram, it's fine. I love it because I get to learn so much about yourselves and you guys get to learn something from me, hopefully. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I love you guys. I will see you in my next video. I hope this was useful and helpful, and I will see you guys soon. Have a good day. Bye.